Hello friends, welcome to the fifth video in this series. In this video, I am going to show you how you can create short URL by supplying the long URL. So before that, we must have the URL table. If you are following me from the previous videos, you know until now we have created the login and sign up form with the Bootstrap and Codeigniter, and in this we have only one table, that is users table, in which we are saving our users email and password. So for shortening the URL, we must have something called the URL table, in which we store the long URL and the short URL and the user's ID by whom the URL has been shortened. So for that we must create a URLs table. So in this video I'm not going to show you how you can create the table query by typing it yourself, because it's too vague for me. If you want to learn how to create a schema, you can check out our second video. So in this video I'm just using the automatic tools to create the URL table. So here we have the, just wait for a second, click on the new table and we have the URLs table. So in this case we have some ID that is called the URLs ID, or just make it something sober. You can say it URL ID. It must be in integer type, and it must be auto incremented, and obviously it is unique, and also the primary key. The second we have the, you can say that the main URL or the long link. So you can say that the original link, or you can original URL. It must be of varchar type. So previously when we are creating table, we are limiting it to 255 characters. You can use up to 65,000 bytes in MySQL. There are limitations according to your database system. In Oracle, in in SQL Server, they are totally different. So you must check out your original documentation for that. In this case I am supplying it to a maximum limit to 1500 characters, that is 1500 bytes. So the default value must not be null, because we must have to supply the original URL, and it is the short URL, and I am limiting it to supply the varchar, and it can be in between 100 characters. It's too much for shorten URL to be 100 characters, because it is just as the long URL we in future, we in this video itself we are shortening it. It will be of 5 to 10 character in between. If you have seen the bit.ly or goo.gl, it is very small. There are mainly 5 to 10 characters in between for the shortened URL. So in this case also we will be limiting it to 100, or you can make it more small by limiting it to, say we have 20. It's enough. So next we have to add the user's ID, which is, it's actually got the foreign key, but I'm not going to mask it as foreign key, because it will be tougher for you guys to just use that more high level concepts. We are using only simple queries, simple and sober queries, that you will be able to do app in just a time, in just a matter of time. So user ID must be of integer type, and it must not be empty, and you must supply that it must be not null. So just, and another is created at the in the previous tables. I've also used this to take benefit of the creation of the URL, in which time or date we have created this URL. So the default value will be now is the default function, as you know, and the last one is updated at. date time no. So that's it, we have that schema which which we will use to create this table. So URL primary key auto increment original URL varchar 1500 character maximum not null, short URL is 20 character not null, user ID is integer not null, and created at and at last updated at. So click on the execute and it will get the user URL table for you. So that's it. Okay, just move to your local host and see if you have everything up or not. So here we have our home page of the URL app and it is showing the home. So we need here the a form in which we supply the main URL and it will get shortened into the um, uh, small URL and reversible, it must be reversible or may not be reversible. It's according to the implementation we can make it reversible or not. You supply the main URL, that is the big one URL, and you will get to the short URL, and you supply the short URL and it will redirect back or convert back to the main URL. Mainly you have both the ways, you have the normal and the reversible way. So we will code both of them. So for that we have to create a URL controller first. Create a class URL and extend CI controller. Use CI controller. Add the constructor to call the parent constructor. That's it. And use the index controller to view the form. So we must load the view form as this load, or use previous thing. Why you need to use your brain in this case? Use the previous theme and in create a URL. It must be like this URL app, and in this URL and index.php. So move to your views directory. In the URL app, create a new folder named URL. In this, create a new view file named index.view. Index.view. In this, you need a form. Open your bootstrap and get some rough template from this. Search for form. Here we have forms. I think no form is there. Here we have the forms in under CSS. So here we have the form, but we need the inline form. So here we have the inline form. Copy this, we will make it more. We will customize it according to our need. Just remove this and see. Okay, just close this, and in this we have the URL. Okay, there is something wrong here. Remove this, we have included URL 2 times. So here we have the form we have just copied from bootstrap website to our index.php view. Just make it look better according to your website. I'm going to use column lg 12. So in the form inline, remove this if you want. Okay, now we have the stacked form. Use the previous one, we need to do something else. Okay, you can use placeholder like long URL, or you can use http my long url.com, and in this you can say shorten it as shorten, short shorten it. Okay, so we don't need any label here. Or we can use something like you say offset. Let's see if it's working. Okay, so here we have the very simple template in which we supply the URL and we will get our shorten URL. So we need to add some helper here. If you are following from the previous videos, we are using the form helper, form open, and similarly we have the form close. You can use the normal HTML here, but if we have something good, we may or must have to use it, taking the benefit of coding something good. So use this. Add this as a second parameter to your form. It will be added as class. So now if you add, it will go to same URL. Okay, in the form open URL you have to supply the URL in which you have to submit this form. So let me see if in the previously how I supplied the URL. It is just simple. Well, I am just copying from here, so you can also copy or you can type it if you want. Handle URL, in the account you need to supply URL. Okay, so we have the URL and handle URL. So we also need to then required, and in the type you must say URL. So here we have our, if I supply the empty or submit the empty URL, it will not make you do so because now it is required. Enter something which is a valid URL, it will redirect to you or move to the form handler, that in this case the handle URL. So in the handle URL, just we need we also need the form validation. For that I will use the previous template for that. Here we have the previous template. I'm copying it just here. So before that, let's close this account. Before that we need to rename supply the name also which we will be using in the PHP code. I have named it as URL. You can supply or you can add anything you want. It must be valid English character, just that. So we have, if you are following from the previous video, you have seen I have added reCAPTCHA. It is just for security reasons. I have not made video on this. It's just simple. But if you want, you can add it, or you don't, because I have hosted this demo on URL. If you are following, you have seen that captcha there. So it's upon you if you want to add it or not. The source code will be available to you on the GitHub account. Okay, now we have the URL and name it required trim is unique. Okay, okay, we will see if this works or not. So move to your index by remove this required for a moment to check out whether your form validation is working or not. So see, to 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 need form validation to work, you need to add something called we call it as validation errors function. So to work, copy from your previous template and paste it here. So now if you supply, it is saying URL field is required, the reCAPTCHA field is required. Okay, I think reCAPTCHA is not, I have not added the reCAPTCHA, so you don't need reCAPTCHA here. You just refresh again. It is saying URL field is required, and supply the URL field, it will not say it. Okay, now we are on the right track. In the else field we need URL, and URL can be get from, okay, I am forgetting how it was, like input can be get from, it is input post, move here, input post, and it was URL. So if you want to see if really getting the result here or not, you need to echo that. Okay, we're getting that. So now we are having the URL, we need to save it to the database, but before that we must have the knowledge that whether the URL is already saved in the database or not. If it is saved, return the saved short key, or if it is not saved, save it. So move to your models directly. In the URL app, create a new folder called URL. Use the template previously, rename it as capital URL. Okay, now we have the URL model. The class URL model, model, enter it, and extends CI model, and use the similar construct parent, call the parent constructor, and in this case function check if URL exists, URL already exists. So how do you check if the URL is already exist? In this, use the queries from here. I'm using the query from here. Supply the URL. Here we have the, okay, what we name the column as, name the column as original URL. So use it here, original URL, original URL. So, and what's the table's name? Table's name is URLs. Okay, now URL. Before doing this, let us query query result array. Okay, but before using this model, we must auto load this model under auto load array model. So how do we use this? Just copy this and paste this here, and URL model URL. Let's see if the URL controller supply this URL model, and the name is check if URL already exists. Check if URL already exists. Apply the URL, and that's it. Refresh this. It is saying empty array. That means the URL is not in the server or database. So if you can check out using count will check if the array has some content or not. If the count is greater than, or yeah, let's say greater than 0, that means the URL is there, so it will return something. But if not, in the else part we will save it. So in the URL model, remove this, do, do return true. That means URL exists. Else return false. So now if you echo, you will just get true or false based upon if the URL exists, it will true. If it not exist, it will return false. Stop the script here. So it is not showing. You need to var dump to see the actual result. Okay, now it is showing false. That's not good. Okay, if the result is true, that means the already exists. If it already exists, it will true. We need to return the existing value. If it not exist, we need to save it. Return the existing short URL. save the URL in DB. So first we will save the URL in DB. Yes. Create a In the URL model, create a new function called save URL. Pass URL as a parameter and use your previous model. Use query from this previous model to insert. It is like you actually use the whole query because you need this. So in this insert add URLs. In URL, the key will be, look at the table here, original URL, original URL, and in the short URL, random. We need some random string elnum up to how many characters. You can use length. By default, it is up to 8 length. It will be quite good. It is 8 length. So and in the user ID, you need to supply the user ID. So what will be the user ID? You can get that user ID according to the session that is saved in the user's browser. So how we get the session? You need to supply the user ID here. So user ID must be supplied here. User ID. Okay. So user ID must be, you can get user ID by, here we have the in the account model. Let's see if we already checked for some user data or something. Yes, we have checked, but we don't supply the email for returning the email data. Okay, we need to make another function called public function get user data in account model, not in the URL model. Supply the email here and use this query again in the email URLs, and in the return this array. Okay, it will return the user data based on email. So how we get the email? To see if there is something inside the session data, we need to move to your headers and get something from here which is known as the session user data email. We will get our email from here. Okay, just echo this to see if there is. Okay, now I have the email. Just pass this email to or use in the same order. We need to use this URL model. It's called save URL. We need to supply two things. First is the URL itself, and second is the email. It will always be true. So what it is returning nothing right now, but you can return the data which is saved. So how you can use it? You can use the same query to return the data. Use this query, original URL and short URL. Just correct here also, short URL. Just use this as a variable, random string. It will be good because we are using it here also. Random string. And also use this. Actually, we are checking if the user the same for same URL that is been created by the URL, returning the same URL. Use this. Just return this result. So here we have the data. So URL data. Okay. So we need to redirect the user to index page. Index page URLs index page. That means the home page where the user has. There is mistake. Okay, we will correct this. So this is URL app URL slash index. So we need to set some data here. Okay, we can use the previous templates we have created, like we have the handle sign up. So we was doing just flash the data or under session. So I will flash the data here. The data will be like URL success. Just rename it according to your. The key is we actually need the key, just key. So for understanding, just use URL data. So let's see how it will work. Press shorten and okay, it is saying call to undefined function random string. That means we need to auto load something, or if there is need of auto loading something, or if the function is not a valid, or in the helpers, the helpers, let's see if you don't know, you can check out the under system. There are helpers, there are various helpers. You can see there helper, captcha, cookie, date, directory, file, form, HTML, language, number helper, number or string helper. I think it needs string helper. So you just need to supply string here and if see if this works or not, and see it is working. So here we have I just beautify it for you. Go pre, it will pretty print the URL for you. Well, let's see how it is looking. It is saying original URL is this, and shortened URL is this. User ID is 123. This is actually wrong. We don't need this 123. It must be wrong. So let's see how we will correct this. Everything is working fine except this user ID, because under save URL, under save URL we actually supplying the user email, not user ID. So here we just need the get user data. We need to use this. So user ID equal to, you can just use this, use account model here, and in user data supply this email. If you don't know what you are doing, just print this user ID will be like this. User ID will be like id or something. Let's see what inside. Close the script here. There is a error somewhere. Here we close this. Okay. Unknown column email. The account model saying we have no columns like. Okay, so here we have the ID. So under this supply ID, that's we have to get the user ID, rename it as user data, and for user ID just use this. Okay, now we have the user ID. User data. Now if you print this URL data, you will have the correct ID, that is 1, not 123. Okay, let's see. Here we have the correct. Everything is working fine here. So our else part is working fine. Before that we also need something called, we need to flash that data to the short URL. That will be very good. Okay, so I am flashing this data only. Okay, close this. Move to your application directory. Under view we have URL under account in the sign up page or in the home page. In the home directory, see we have used that flash data messages. Copy that, move to your URL and paste that, and in the flash data under the key sign up success, rename it as URL success, and also here URL success. So move to your URL, and here we have refresh. See, it is returning the shortened key here, but we need to beautify it according to our need. So how we will going to beautify it? We will say it like shortened. Shortened URL is, it will be like you are, or you can say that, is it base URL, under which you need to supply some thing called some controller name. In this case we are saying URL, or let's see what it will show again. So it is saying like this is something gibberish, so we need to supply this. Let's do it again and again. It is showing something else. We need to make it look better. So we can do something like this, not using the functionality. Press enter. Okay, now see, it is working, but we need to make it more correct. We have the namespace of our app, that is URL app, and this is a controller, and this is, we can use our method is r, or you can say add redirect. When you supply some, you shorten URL to it, it will redirect to your original URL. So like this, see here. So here we have r. So if you open it, okay, let's do it again. Yeah, make it a proper URL. So how we can make it a proper URL? Just move your cursor outside this, remove this, use the proper formatting, and also under this, close this. Okay, again press enter. Now we have the shortened URL is this. So if you click this, it will say 404 page not found, because we have not created this method right now. So let's create this method also. We need to do little things here in the URL, because we do not have done this part. We will move back to this part, but before this, create a method, name this r. So we have our method here. We don't need any indexing, or uh, not need any view here, because we just need to see if the URL is in the database. If it is in the database, we need to just redirect that shortened URL to the main URL. So we don't need to do this here. So in R we have this. We just need the short key that is supplied above here. So how we will get that short key? We, this is generally called the segments. It is actually a segment in the URL. In the Codeigniter we have something called segment. We will search it in the documentation here. Just move to your Codeigniter Here we have the coordinated documentation. Type the segmentation here. The spelling is wrong. Segmentation, segmentation, segmentation. So here we have the coordinator URLs. Open this and see it is saying URI segments. What it is saying, that you can get any value from the URL, no matter how the URL, how many numbers of URLs have been supplied, you can get the URL segments. So here we have something called URL segments, but how we will use that URL segment? Under URL helper, we have the helper. We have already loaded the helper, I think so. Before that, just check out your auto load, and under, okay, we have the URL helper, no issues. So is there anything called segment? We need to see. There are other things, but there are, I think there is no segment. We need to move back to our search form. Under okay. Open the URI library. Maybe here we have the, okay, we have the segment. So how we are going to use this segment? Here we have the segment. So we need to auto load library, maybe under libraries. Must be second one. Okay, URL. Move over to your URL controller and see if it is returning something or not. What it is returning? Okay, we are actually, or guess is quite right. It is returning. Okay, let's see if there is something called we have some index. Okay, it is returning data we want, that is our R, but we need the ID. So we have the ID here. So we can say that short URL. Okay, we need to check if the short key exists in the database or not. For that we need to create a model under URL. Under URL model, you can create a new function, public function, check if short URL exists. Supply the short URL here and check if that exists or not. Use this query get where original URL, or you can rename it as short URL. So we have the short URL here, and it if exists it will return true, or don't return true, return the array itself, because we need to use that data also. That's it. Just copy this name because it's too long. So how you use it? We have this function under URL model, and here we have this short URL. Just random to see what's inside this. Okay, here we have the data. I just need to pretty print this for you. So here we have the data. We are supplying this key, the short URL, and it is checking whether URL exists in the database or not. Just type something else to see if it is truly, yes, it is checking. So we have this. Okay, it is showing URL ID, original URL, we need to redirect to this URL. When we are supplying this key, we need to redirect to this URL. And it is also returning the user ID, the time it is, at what time it is created, and updated time also. So just enter this here. If equal to false, it is equal to false, use this session under index, uh, type the message as URL error, ERROR. What will be the URL error? Wrong URL supplied, or the URL, just leave it, wrong URL supplied, that's it. Okay, for if the URL is correct, then we need to use redirected to create a variable named original URL, and use the key in the database ORIGI, original URL. So it will be the original URL and redirect it to original URL. That's it. So when the user will supply, it will redirect it to this URL. See, it is working. So let's see if we supply something else. Let's search something on Google. Here we have some URL, which is quite big. I am going to enter this URL into our app. Here we have this. Okay, now it is saying our shortened URL this. If I click this, it must redirect me to the original URL. And see, it is working. That's all. But we have some issues here. In our app, URL Shortener app, it is actually keep adding the URL I am supplying it. So it is keep adding the URL I am supplying it. That means we need to make it non-duplicate.
So in the next video we will see if there is a duplicacy in the URL, that the URL if the URL which is submitted by the user is already in the database, we do not going to insert it again. We just return the short key from the database itself, so that we do not have the duplicate keys in our database. Thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe, like, share. Thank you.